before we get started. All right. Yeah, so this is the Healing Chronicles and the things that happened as a result of that first march in 1963, especially how long it took to even get to that point of 250,000 people marching for freedom and for jobs. Um, which is where, for some of you who may not be familiar, which is where Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech with Mahalia Jackson singing in the background. It was about healing. So we are still continuing today, and we will not give up. And we will continue to do whatever it is that we have to do in order to change minds and hearts to just be better human beings. So we are going to go ahead and kick off this Healing Chronicles. How's everyone doing? Hi, Patty. Good to see you. Hi, Ro. Good, good, good. Okay. This is going to be a different kind of Healing Chronicles tonight, guys. So get ready. I'm going to start off with the familiar, and for those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who continue to stay with us month after month, who loves you, baby? Okay, there we go. PowerPoint. All right. Share. All right. Can everyone see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see you. What do you see?
Welcome to the Healing Chronicles.
Well, thank you, Peggy, and welcome. Yes. All right.
I have a Savior, how can I go to that land where I'm bound? I have a Savior. I have a Savior. I have a Savior.
All right, and thank you to Nia Chen for creating such a beautiful video to give people an introduction to the Healing Chronicles, as this is what we do. We speak every month on topics that are galvanizing this country or polarizing it or any other izing you can think of. We try to make stuff whole. We learn, we heal, we reconcile. So I just wanted to introduce my co-host, Rhonda.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Rhonda Mendoza, and welcome to all of our new found Healing Chronicles families. If you look over in your Zoom, we have the reactions page, and those are the great emojis. Feel free to use the clap button, the heart. If you want to raise your hand to do a discussion, you can do so. And if you still get confused, feel free to talk to me in chat. And what I will do is I will refer to Monda and we can continue on in our discussion. And Monda, I'll leave it to you on how we enjoy our Healing Chronicles evening. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome. Good evening. Hi, Monda.
Okay. Rules of engagement. Again, I'm giving all control to my brother Sundiata tonight, so I'm not too sure what to expect. I'm excited, and on purpose, I didn't ask him because I wanted to experience the wonder of it in real time. So I don't think anything tonight is going to be too egregious or make you raise your eyebrows in a way that we have. So rules of engagement, we'll just continue to be kind to one another. Tonight's discussion dedication is to Naomi Osaka, who, as some of you may know, said that she would dedicate some of her winnings or her winnings from an upcoming tournament to the victims of the horrible, horrible earthquake in Haiti that took a couple of thousand lives. So big ups to Naomi Osaka. And the boo hiss for this week goes out to the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, who signed into law a open carry for unlicensed individuals in the state of Texas starting September 1. This is the first time this law has been allowed since Reconstruction. So boo hiss to him. Okay, so we're going to have a word from our sponsor, Peggy Sullivan and Amanda Alford. And after that word, the next person that you will see will be Sundiata Salaam. You all know him as Sujata. I know him as my baby brother. And he will be talking about soul activism, your journey to a spiritual awakening. Okay, so Peggy, would you like to share your screen?
I would. So
Did I just say screen? Let me get some water while you share the screen.
sure. First and foremost, what a privilege and what a pleasure to be here tonight. I think this is my third session, and I have to tell you, I just love the discussion, and more than that, I just love the ability to learn and to change my paradigm and to change my perspective. When I met Monda, I have to say I fell in love with her and what she was doing, and it just seemed like such a natural thing because She Can is an organization that's really trying to promote diversity. My partner, Amanda Alford, she kind of partners with me to head up Diverse is She, but we're very, very focused about this, not just talking about it, but just really showing in our everyday action what you can do differently and really trying to turn the paradigm upside down. But with that said, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes. I am the founder of She Can, just to tell you a little bit more about She Can. We are a membership-based community, and really our purpose, our mission is to give women the tools to step into their power so that they could become their personal and their professional best. We just want women to be successful and to have a strong community behind them and to have a lot of support so they can get whatever it is they need so they can really rock whatever it is they do, and or more importantly want to do. Really what sets our organization apart from many other organizations is we really believe in the total woman. So what do I mean by that? You know, it's hard to be healthy and whole when one part of you is not healthy and whole. And so we believe in a positive mindset. We believe that work's important. It's important for you to have a growth mindset and to develop professionally. But we also feel health and wellness is very important too, and that these three things, they all balance and they put together make a successful woman. And it's important not to ignore or to diminish one of these important aspects. We do this by offering 8 to 12 events a month. We have some events that are in person in our signature cities, but we also have a lot of events that are virtual. And I really just wanted to invite each and every one of you to come join us. It's always a growth experience. It's always a learning experience. And if anybody wants to learn more about our community or wants to get some complimentary tickets, you can feel free to join us at theshecannetwork.com, or you can reach out to me at hello@peggysullivanspeaker.com, and I'd be more than happy to welcome you into our community. A great group of women here, and I'm just so proud to be standing here head to head amongst all of you. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to introduce the little brother. I can do that. But I'm going to stop sharing and leave the mic to him.
Thank you, Peggy. We appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
All right. You ready, Sundiata? I guess so. That's a sure sign. All righty. I'm going to go on mute. And everyone, let's get ready to heal.
All right. Thank you, Monda. I was like, is someone about to introduce me? And I was going to be uncomfortable with it happening, so I'm glad nobody introduced me at all. But it's good to see every single person, and I'm grateful, one, just for Monda allowing me to have the space to be able to do this. I've sat in on at least 2 or 3 Healing Chronicles conversations, and what we're going to be doing today will be a little different, but it will all speak to what has been happening. I promise. There are some different rules of engagement I do have, though, just a little bit. This is talking about soul awakening. And so what that means is that in order to be able to go through that process, that sort of spiritual process, it's going to be important for people to be vulnerable. The only way that we can get to a space of actual awakening is through truth. There's a special saying in many books, the truth will set you free. Well, that's actually true. And so we're talking about getting to an actual space of truth and vulnerability, which will require you to make some of those steps. We can't be surface level in this. Now, if I was in person, I would make eye contact with people and pick on you if you weren't moving past surface level. But we're not. We're on Zoom, and I can only see a few people at a time. But I just ask of you, please, to make sure that you deep dive into that vulnerability. Yes, can I get some thumbs up, emoticons, and some head nods? Cool. Now, with that being said, when it comes to vulnerability, when you are being vulnerable in a space and that space is sacred, that means that no one should take what happens in here out and take anyone's vulnerability somewhere else to where it can be stepped on. When people decide to come forward and bring their full selves and vulnerability and trust, that means that we have to honor that accordingly. This is a sacred space, not a secret one, but a sacred one, which means that when people come with their stuff, and if we do this appropriately, you will come out with some of your stuff, then good. That is for our betterment and for our growth. Make sense? Also, when I'm saying make sense of things of that sort, feel free to get off your mic and say, yep, makes sense. The Zoom world is so interesting, right? Because what we did in the Zoom world is figured out a better way to connect with one another, but we also figured out a way to connect just a little bit so we don't have to connect fully, right? And so we do things like, I got to turn my camera off because I'm busy right now. And I do understand that, some people won't have their camera on, and that's okay. But if you could have your camera on so I can see your face, that is also a part of this engagement that I want us to get into. All right, so let's move forward. And the other thing, I talk fast sometimes because I get excited about what I'm doing. And when that happens, someone just get on the screen and wave their hands and be like, hey, slow down. I need a little bit more time. All right, are we ready? Are y'all ready to be vulnerable and share and do all those things?
We're ready.
All right, that's what I'm talking about, Amanda. And I'm a teacher, and so sometimes I cold call. And so there may be times where I'm like, let me look at this person's name, and I might call you out and say, why don't you share? And I promise you it's all out of love. So moving forward, one of the things, well, actually, before I get into this thing about the personal legend, I noticed on one of the slides that Monda was sharing, it talked about, I said I was going to remember it, when he talked about the change and the things that need to happen and racism and the revealing in the world, etc. one of the things that I want us to do is to realize that in the fight that we're having for equality, that we're always bringing ourselves to that fight. And what I mean by that is, well, what self am I bringing? And I've got a couple of stories in terms of that. I did grad school at Syracuse, New York, and I was in a Pan-African Studies program. And I was around some scholars. Like, these weren't people who just were writing things. These were people who were also, as the young kids say, about that life. Or is that, and young kids might not say it anymore. But they were about that life for real, right? There was a woman named Dr. Mashere Mugo, who is a poet from Kenya. And was jailed during one of the Kenyan regimes. There's a gentleman named Horace Campbell who is out of Jamaica who wrote multiple books and did things in Uganda when things were happening there. It's Winston Grady Willis, Dr. Janice Mates. These were brilliant, brilliant people. And I really looked up to them. And there were some classes that I took every once in a while where I remember feeling like, man, I look up to these people, but why are they being so mean? What's going on? What's happening? And I excused it. And I excused it at the moment because I looked up to them. And I thought, these are the people who were really advanced in the struggle. And so I really looked up to them. Then I got a little older. I looked back and I said to myself, those people I looked up to, they also had stuff. They did. And that's okay that they had those things. And so what we're going to do is figure out, like, how can we be those people who I looked up to in Syracuse, New York, quite a bit, but also deal with our stuff, what it is that we're bringing to the table. And y'all, I promise, I don't have COVID. I got multiple tests to find out, but I have definitely been struggling a little bit lately, so bear with me as we go through that. So let's talk about this first. Personal legend. Specifically, a personal legend is one's destiny in life. You're right. It's identifying your purpose, what you've always wanted to accomplish. And it comes down to that special question, what are you here for? Why are you here on this earth this time? What did you come to do? And I want to play this video real quick. And we'll hear a lot of videos here and there. As a matter of fact, let me make sure I do optimizing video, share computer sound, and optimize screen. We'll see a lot of videos throughout, and afterwards we'll have some back and forth in terms of commentary of what's there. But be thinking about your personal legend as we're watching this. Why am I here? What is the reason that I came for? And we'll watch this video.
Do you believe every person has a personal legend?
I'm 100% convinced, which is totally different that I believe that every person is going to fulfill his or her personal legend.
Okay, I would agree. Every person has a personal legend. First of all,
I'm sorry, y'all. I did not mean for that to happen.
That I believe that every person is going to fulfill his or her personal legend.
okay, I would agree. Every person has a personal legend. First of all, what is a personal legend? The book follows the shepherd boy Santiago. He experiences this recurring dream and then starts on a journey to realize his personal legend. What is the personal legend?
It is the reason that you are here. It is simple as this, You are here to honor something called the miracle of life. You can be here to fulfill your hours and days with something that it is meaningless.
Yeah.
But you know that you have a reason to be here. Yeah. It is the only thing that gives you enthusiasm.
Right.
Yeah. And when you are betraying your personal legend, when you are doing something without enthusiasm. Yeah. And worse, that you have this good excuse. I'm not ready, which is just an excuse. No, people say, no, I'm not ready. I have to wait for the right moment. Now I have to feed my family. Come on. Your family wants to see you happy.
Yes.
Your daughter, your husband, your wife, they don't want to see you there sitting in a work that you hate.
Right.
Even if it gives you tons of money.
Okay, so you've just given a really key clue to how to know you're pursuing your personal legend. It is that which in life gives you enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll stop right there. Up right there. Specifically, this quote is what stands out. You know you are betraying your personal legend when you are doing something without enthusiasm. And so as we go through this and this journey of soul awakening, I want us to be thinking, well, what is my personal legend? What is it that I do and that I do consistently with enthusiasm? Make sense? All right. Moving forward. And y'all forgive me for any technical aspects that happen. There's a book that gentleman wrote. Does anyone know the book that he wrote? Anyone know the book that gentleman wrote?
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist. The Alchemist. Another Fez. Beautiful. The Alchemist, right? And in The Alchemist, this quote is here. Can someone read at least the top paragraph aloud? One.
Oh, absolutely, baby brother. I'd be happy to. Even though I complain sometimes, his heart said, it's because I am the heart of a person. And people's hearts are that way. People are afraid to pursue their most important dreams because they feel they don't deserve them or that they won't be able to achieve them. We, their hearts, become fearful just thinking of loved ones who go away or of moments that could have been good but weren't, or treasures that might have been found but were forever hidden in the sands. Because when these things happen, we suffer terribly.
I'll keep reading. It says, my heart is afraid it will have to suffer, said the boy. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dream, because every second of the search is an encounter with God. When I have been truly searching for my treasure, every hour has been luminous, because every hour has been a part of the dream. When I have been truly searching for my treasure, I discover things along the way that I never would have seen had I not had the courage to try things that seemed impossible to achieve. Everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits them. Unfortunately, very few follow the path laid out for them. They just go along and see the world as a threatening place. And because they do, the world does indeed turn out to be a threatening place. We, their hearts, speak more and more softly, for we don't want people to suffer because they don't follow their hearts. Why don't people's hearts tell them to continue to follow their dreams, asked the boy. Because that's what makes hearts suffer most, and hearts don't like to suffer. What you still need to know is this. Before a dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that was learned along the way. It does this so we can, in addition to realizing our dreams, master the lessons we've learned as we move toward that dream. That's the point at which most people give up. That's the point, as we say in the desert, that one dies of thirst just as the palm trees have appeared on the horizon. Every search begins with beginner's luck and ends with being severely tested. The darkest hour of the night comes just before the dawn. That last paragraph, does that speak to anyone? And does that speak at all to what we've been talking about in terms of activism?
I'll speak up. Wow, I have to say that this moment and the topic is just perfect for where I am right now. You know, I'll just speak about the organization that I started, that Monda has helped considerably with, was in memory of my father. And when I just jumped at that, I guess it was a jump that was somewhat fearless, I guess, because I've made that jump, but I believe it was out of love, for my father, to honor my father. But boy, I tell you, I was not educated in any of that. So I came to this with my heart, and realizing these dreams and lessons that you have learned along the way, I guess is a good reason why I haven't given up, which may annoy a bunch of people. But I guess I wouldn't be where I am to and helping women and families if I hadn't gone through so much. There's a ton of fear and a ton of self-doubt. And also the fact that, I'm not, I don't have the college degree. All those things puts me in a really tough spot of fearful of failure. And it just at the time where you think it's not going to work, something does happen. So when you say the palm trees, appear, it's just at the point, at the darkest hour where you're ready to give up. For me, fortunately, something has always happened in the positive that has made me recognize and feel that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's supposed to be happening because things are falling in place, even though I'm scared to death about it.
Thank you, Miss Patty. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. One other person, what this speaks to, and specifically that last paragraph and what it may speak to in terms of our activism work.
I'll speak. My name is Peggy Sullivan, and I spent a good portion of my life, being that person who was very privileged in many ways, but I always thought that I was very, very enlightened and very open-minded. And it took a bunch of people kind of shaking me down and basically saying, you're not doing enough, for me to realize that there's so much more to be done, and that we all have a part in this thing we call curing racism and making sure that everybody has a voice. And I know for me, when my sisters told me I wasn't doing enough, I kind of shrank and I felt very small and very sad and horrible. But then all of a sudden I realized that, we can all do more, and that doing more means making a better path for somebody else. And that is a beautiful, 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 beautiful thing. And so I'm kind of talking in circles a little bit, but I know for me, where it gets darkest and where it gets hardest, that's when things get really exciting, when you can say to yourself, yeah, that person has a point, and I am flawed, and there's more I can do, and there's things I can get better at, and there are things I can get stronger at. So it takes a lot of courage to be that person to say, hey, you should be doing better. And it takes a lot of bravery to say, you know what, you're right. Instead of being defensive, I'm going to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, or at least try to.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Before dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that was learned along the way. And so as we move on a little bit more and we become more vulnerable, thank you all for those two that shared and have already shown us sort of the way to be vulnerable. Know that those things are going to come up that are going to test your progress, even in these moments as we begin to be even more vulnerable. And so I want to talk a little bit about inspiration before moving on. And all of us have, crazy jobs or something happening in life that is really a struggle. And we oftentimes have to depend on inspiration. Earlier, we were talking about Haiti, and I think often about Haiti and what they've gone through and the way we've responded to what's happened in Haiti. We're talking about a country who in 1791 was the first country of people of African descent who decided themselves that they would no longer be under the thumb of oppression by the French. The French at this time was a major world power, right? We're talking the French of Napoleon's time. And these people of African descent in Haiti defeated them from 1791 to 1804. They had a successful revolution. It was so successful that the people in America were concerned. They said, we're afraid that in any second now, the Haitians may have a ship and land in South Carolina and try to free the Africans here in America. This is the resilience of those people. And so when we see the earthquakes that have taken place and we see the infrastructure and all the things that happen, I often go back to, these are the people of Toussaint Louverture, of Boukmandati, of Cecil Fatiman, who had the spirit to continue to overcome despite the obstacles that were in front of them. And that first earthquake that happened in 2009, over 80% of their hospitals and over 60% of their schools were destroyed. And if you look up pictures, you will see them in makeshift buildings having school. Can you imagine that? The schools were destroyed, and they were still trying to figure out, like the Maasai warriors, how are the children? They were still doing that, despite the fact of what had happened. That's the type of inspiration that I'm talking about. Despite what may be going on, what can we depend on to push us forward? So inspiration, I often love to look up definitions, and I like this last one. It says, from the Latin inspirare, and those who know Latin, I probably butchered the word, but I don't speak Latin. And it means to blow into, to breathe upon figuratively. So what we're going to be thinking about, what I'm going to show is, well, who is it that inspires us, literally breathes life into us to make us continue to move forward? So inspiration, where does it come from? We'll talk about history, and then we'll talk a little bit about personal, then you'll do it yourself. So I have Ella Baker. Who knows Ella Baker in this room, this Zoom room? Ella Baker? People love Ella Baker, know Ella Baker? No Ella Baker? Some people say no. Anybody say yes to Ella Baker? Any thumbs up to Ella Baker?
Yes to Ella Baker.
Yes, ma'am. I knew, Miss Margaret, you were going to know Ella Baker. Here's the thing, though, about Ella Baker that's interesting. Ella Baker would be just fine with none of you knowing her, because Ella Baker was a worker who worked behind the scenes. But if it was not for Ella Baker, all the marches and the things that we're talking about, they wouldn't have been. She was a major organizer in the civil rights movement. And when I started my work, working in schools, I thought, man, I got to be strong for everybody. I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I was constantly working hard. And Ella Baker told me, strong people don't need strong leaders. And that brings me to my son. He's a lot older than this now. But around this age, he started saying to me, no, I got it, Dad, I got it. And it was difficult for me. But he was trying to let me know I can also exhibit my own strength to be able to do well. I don't need you to try and do everything for me. And Ella Baker's advice for me in terms of inspiration came to me when I was in my work. Again, I'm working in disadvantaged communities historically. So I'm like, I got to be strong for them and do this and do that and do this and do that. And then when Ella Baker says, strong people don't need strong leaders, I thought to myself, well, wait a second. Do you think the people who you are working with are strong? So then I had to check myself. I thought the people I was working with were a deficit, and I needed to fill that deficit up and help them, not realizing the strength that was in that community. And then my son came and taught me, strong people don't need strong leaders, right? So that's one of my inspirations from history. Some other inspirations, my wife, who I believe is on here as well. Listen, y'all, I got to see her have my son, our son. I was upstairs in our bonus room where she had him. It was on December the 29th when labor started. And I remember because I was upstairs playing video games. Sorry, but I was upstairs playing video games, and I heard her grandmother say, I think Nasika's calling you. And so I run out, and it's like 2, 3 in the morning. And she's like, I think I'm bleeding a little bit. Something's happening. So we call the midwife. We get situated. We're getting ready. Like, oh my God, it's time. He's going to come. And we were going to do a water birth. And then the next day comes, and then the day continues. Her water breaks on, I believe, December 30th. She might could correct me. And I'm like, all right, it's time now. Still nothing. I remember going to sleep that night, and he hadn't come yet, but she's still feeling contraction and going through some of that pain. And I went to sleep. We went to sleep on the floor together. And then I remember waking up and she wasn't there. And I was like, oh my God, I missed the birth. What in the world has happened? I was terrified that I had missed the birth of my child. Finally, on December 31st, it was actually December 30th, but it was going into December 31st. Remember, she started on December the 29th. December 31st, things are starting to happen. And she begins to push him out. And she's in the water. And I remember I had to use the bathroom. Too much information. Look, y'all, I'm from the South. Sometimes we tell too much information. But I had to use the bathroom, and I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. And she said, if you leave this room, I was like, well, I got to deal with it right here. And so I remember getting behind her. She was in the pool and holding her up under her arms this way. And my legs were shaking because I was holding her up. And there was a moment in that where I said to myself, if your legs break, they break. I was going to hold her up as much as I possibly could. And she had our child at 12:29 a.m. on December the 31st. I've never in my life seen strength like that. Never. It's the first time I've ever seen something like that. And so whenever I think about giving up, I'm like, my wife was in labor for almost, the days I always make it larger. I'm like, she was in labor for like 3 days. She wasn't eating or drinking anything because anything she ate or drank, she was throwing up. And through that struggle, life came about. And so for me, when I'm getting an intense struggle, I'm like, there's life at the end of this. There's life at the end of this. And so that she is part of my inspiration for that. And she may just be my inspiration, or I may also be getting brownie points because she's on the Zoom right now. But definitely an inspiration. And on the right, you see, we would go to his school sometimes, and he would play drum, and we were reading for his classmates. And Wali was big on the djembe at that time period. Moving forward, this quote here, tell me if this speaks to anyone who's on here. It says, be a man, earn what you need for your own family. Then your family respects you. They are proud to say, that's my father. She is proud to say, that's my husband. Father means you're taking care of your children. Husband means you're taking care of your wife. You are accepting responsibility of manhood. This is a quote from Malcolm X. Does this speak to anyone on the Zoom? Anybody? Don't be shy.
It speaks to me because I mean that's my husband. You know, when you read that quote, he takes care of me, takes care of the kids. So I love that quote.
Who's saying that? Is that
Amanda?
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I want to give a.
It's 100% time management. 100% time management.
Who is that speaking? Someone said 100% time management. Who is that?
I don't know if that was meant for us.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Becky.
Oh, my bad.
Or Spring, were you about to talk?
Well, no, I mean, I was just going to say it absolutely reminds me of my dad because my dad worked, and his whole thing was to provide for his family because that's what a man did.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so it's, it speaks to me volumes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Go ahead, Becky.
I was just going to echo actually what she just said. It reminds me of my father and something that my father used to say about men, you know, helping to take care of their wives and one of the ways showing that they love them being like, he keeps her up, right? Which everybody shows love in very different ways. I just think that's something that stood out in my head. Like, I care about you enough to help you stay in a space where you feel healthy and feel loved and feel beautiful. So that speaks to me.
And I'm not speaking about traditional roles or anything of that sort, but I know that this also speaks to something within my own life. And so we're going to watch this video really quickly. And then we're going to move to the next thing in terms of some more inspiration. And then we're going to get to some work that you're going to have to do as well. But when we're watching this video, anyone who this may speak to in terms of their soul, be ready to speak to it. Here we go.
How easy it is for us to forget what it was like when we were once family. The times we shared. How easy it is for us to forget how to love.
Apa, Silvana.
Lei, c'est fine.
How easy it is for us to forget how to smile. It's easy to forget.
Papa, dia cumi apa?
Sai, dia có boleh lihat dari kakek.
But it's even harder not to love.
Pak, Ma.
Apa, Mama, c'est fine.
Sai, c'est fine.
Family is forever.
Choppy, but I see some people's eyes. I think that you all could see it. But I showed that video and showed that dad, the way that he was moving to try and do what was best for his son. And it goes to another inspiration of mine. And before I share it, does anyone have anything they want to share before I move forward? Okay. All right. And so, does anyone know what this is a picture of over here on the right? Or what does it look like, possibly?
Of course, it's a picture of coal miners.
Coal miners.
In West Virginia, hopefully.
Coal miners. And why? So that's my father that's speaking. Daddy, why is that picture? How did you know that immediately was what that was?
Easily, because my father and your grandfather was a coal miner.
And this is a picture of his father and my grandfather. And as I was going through this and putting this together and thinking about the coal miners and what they went through, I remember stories my father would tell me about his father. He would say sometimes, like, he was there, he worked hard, he wanted to make sure the family was taken care of, but sometimes he didn't seem as emotionally there. And then I thought about the nature of the work that they were doing. They were literally going and risking their life daily to get coal, which is a substance that literally absorbs things out of you. And so I can imagine the amount of emotions that just by doing the work around coal absorbs out of you. And they're also seeing this black coal every single day as they are going and working, and what that does to you emotionally. Yet my father's father, my grandfather, Daddy B as he was called, worked hard to make sure his family was taken care of. My dad tells stories about how he had a garden and he would grow particular vegetables and he would give it to my dad. And then transferring this work ethic, my dad was like, I'm gonna sell these things that you're growing. And he was selling them to people around the neighborhood. That's the sort of inspiration that I come from. And so here you see a picture of myself on the left, Waleed in the middle, and my father on the far right. I told my wife, I said, this is probably a moment where I'm going to start crying. And so for those who are crying, then I'll join with you in a few seconds. But I think about that inspiration for me. The reason this picture is important is because every single day on the first day of school, my father would, see, here it comes. Now I'm doing a presentation, so I have to try not to cry so I can get through it. But For anyone else who cries throughout this, tears are good. It is the washing of the soul. And so he would, every first day of school, hold our hands and walk us into the school building. Every first day of school. And when I was in high school, I was like, oh my God, I gotta walk up to the door again with my daddy holding my hand and the rest of the kids seeing me. But he did it every single time. And now I have a son. And this is what happened on his first day of school.
Can I record this too? How was your summer? Oh my goodness! I want a foot since I last seen him. I want to hear all about it. Did you get some new shoes?
Yes, and I lost one too.
What? You were like such a big kid. Man. And look, you're twinning with Dad today? Yep. Twinning and winning. Yeah. Did you get a picture of them? Well, I got a video going now. Hi, Grandpa. Everybody so nice to meet you. How you doing? Good. How are good, you? Good, good. Have a good day.
Hey, Miss Fab. So on the first day of school, I walked my son in, and my father walked. We all walked in together. That's the inspiration, and that's the type of inspiration that I want us to all connect and tap into when we think about our own inspiration. And I just have this picture for cuteness. My sister also had a baby Amina, recently, and as you can see here, I don't know what her and Papa are watching, but they are watching it intently. But this is the stock that I come from. Who does this picture speak to, if anyone? Who does it speak to? And what was, does anyone know what was happening at this time?
This wasn't the March on Washington, was it? I think this is when they were crossing the bridge in Selma, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else who does it speak to?
I think it speaks to teamwork.
Teamwork, yeah. Is there any person, absolutely, is there any person on here that this picture has any significance to?
I mean, it just, for me, I have memories of being a child, and my uncle was very involved in the march. I learned it later, because when I was little, I was 4 and 5 and 6 years old, and I didn't quite understand what was happening, but because he drove the school bus. But he also put together the buses of people from Michigan that would drive down to march in Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia, all these places like that. So he and my aunt were forever taking bus loads of people to join these marches. So it puts me in memory of that as a child.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I don't know why Miss Margaret didn't say anything, because earlier, go ahead.
I have unmuted, but I just, other people jumped in, so I didn't say
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Is it too late?
No, ma'am, never too late.
When I saw the picture, the Selma to Montgomery march didn't come to mind, but an accumulation of marches, because these are the people, or some of the people, who year in and year out, decade after decade, were determined. You see the determination on their face. They were going somewhere, and there was nothing going to turn them around, if I can use Martin Luther King's message. I'm not sure that's the Selma, because I was looking for John Lewis. I don't see him there. I don't see a lot of people who should have been in the front line with Dr. King at this point. But it's indicative of all of the marches that he did. Determination is on his face. He's going to get to where he's going, and he's going to make some changes. That's what I read into it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ms. Margaret. This job description, if someone needed to apply for a job, and this was on a job description, who would definitely get hired from this? Must have experience with protests. Must have attended at least 2 marches. Has heard Dr. King speak live, but can't really remember if they heard him. Has flown into Montgomery, Alabama at least once in their life. Has felt compelled to rebel against injustice, and has seen the news segment Bloody Sunday, preferably saw it when it initially aired.
Miss Margaret would have to go back to work.
Miss Margaret all day long.
Good for every single one of those. Absolutely.
Every single one. Let me tell y'all what's interesting about Miss Margaret. So I was looking up some things on Miss Margaret because of just being inspired by her from all of the calls. And I was calling Monda. I was like, you got to tell me something about Miss Margaret because I just like to hear her talk every time we're on these calls. And I looked up this interview. And in the interview, all of these are the things, I'm pointing at my screen like y'all can see me. All of these are the things that Miss Margaret mentioned. She's like, protest, I'm there. Attended at least more than one march. She said, yeah, I was at the Selma protest and I was so excited. I think I heard Dr. I don't really remember him speaking, but I was there, right? The only person I know in history that could say that. And she said she was inspired to go there because she saw the news segment Bloody Sunday. Can you imagine being inspired to go somewhere after you saw what happened on Bloody Sunday? That's why she was inspired to go there, because of what she saw on Bloody Sunday. And so what that must mean in terms of her personal legend, the ability to tap in deeply to that, to say, I am so dedicated to who I am and what I'm supposed to do that I will put my body on the line for it because I came here for this. This is my personal legend. And so I am just so inspired by Miss Margaret. And, you know, Miss Margaret can give you this picture right here, which is the professional fancy picture. And then she can also give you the cool, right? Like she can give you the cool as well as the professional. You know, she can give you both sides of that spectrum. But I'm inspired by Miss Margaret. If anyone wants to share anything about her before I move on, I want to give time for that to happen.
Well, Sundiata, one thing that I will add, because I've had the opportunity and the privilege to interview Miss Margaret for my upcoming documentary, you talk about, you know, seeing a segment on the news and having that knee-jerk reaction and saying, I have to be there, right? I felt similarly for the Million Man March, you know, which happened here when I was growing up. But Miss Margaret was married. She had a toddler.
Mm.
And when you talk about a personal legend, she was willing to leave her husband and her child and was prepared to not come back in case she was killed.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get any more inspiring than that.
That's right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anything?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Monda, can I add one? Well, the thing that amazes me, and I put it in the chat, is Miss Margaret is still marching.
Mm.
And that's the thing that, I mean, just amazes me. If I ever even think about, I'm tired, I have to think about Miss Margaret and get my butt up. Because she's still marching. If anybody has not seen it, find it some kind of way. The coverage of the Women's March that was on Amazon. I forget the name of the actual, what's it called?
We're going to get there too.
Yeah,
but
that
I am, after I first met Miss Margaret through this medium, I immediately went and watched it, and I just loved her even more, and tried to adopt her, but they won't let me. So
no. Miss Margaret's like, I'm not having that. She got to resist that too. But look, here's the thing about this that I want us to focus on. Your personal legend may not be going to marches, and that's okay. But whatever it is, do it with the same vigor that Miss Margaret is doing what she's doing. And so let's get into that. Let's get into that thing. I'm taking a little bit too much of my time. Someone said take your time earlier, and then I decided to do it like a Baptist preacher and really take my time. So let me speed up just a little bit for sake of time. One of my inspirations from history, and I'm doing this one as well so that we can get to what we're going to do. In a few seconds, you're going to have to do some work. So don't go off camera and be like, oh, suddenly I got to go use the bathroom, because we're going to have to get involved into some work in a few seconds. One of my inspirations from history, his name is Abdul Sata Ebi. He says, people have become educated, but have yet to become human. What does that mean? What do you all think that means?
Means it takes more than book learning to be a human being. It takes something from the heart, something from the soul, something that you're sensitive to the needs of others and you care about others. There's so many intrinsic values that are not taught in a book, but it's a part of a lifestyle.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Anyone else that would love to follow that?
Interestingly enough, it reminds me of when computers take over, and there's always that part where they think they're so smart that they can do away with humanity. You know, you all destroy yourself, so we'll take care of it for you, because they have no soul. So they're smart, they're brilliant, they've got all the knowledge in them, but they have no humanity. And so many of the computer movies where computers take over, to me, sounds like those people who are educated but have yet to become human.
Yeah. All of the Islamic scholars, he used to run an ambulance, and he would pick up different people, and he's from Pakistan. He would pick up all these different people, and didn't care what their religion is, of course. He would pick them up, and these Islamic scholars were like, what is the point of this? Why are you doing all this and picking all these people up? And he would say, well, the ambulance truck is more Muslim than you are. Right? So he was very in tune with his humanity, and someone who I'm very inspired by. And I want to watch this video about him. And then after we watch this video, we're going to watch a couple more videos throughout, you all. But after we watch this one, I want us to then get ready to focus on writing who it is that we are, right? So the question I'm going to ask you from this video is, if you had to describe who is Abdul Sata Idi, who is he? And then we're going to get into some more personal work. Okay. Sorry, y'all.
ठंडा पानी है नहीं ठंडा नहीं होना चाहिए है ना मैं तो यूं समझता हूँ कि कल मेरा मौत है, लेकिन दिन बढ़ते ही जा रहे हैं। लेकिन जो दिन मिला अच्छाई के लिए, वो अच्छा है, वो मेरी जिंदगी है। ठंडा नहीं होना चाहिए। मैं इंडिपेंडेंट काम कर रहा हूँ, किसको कोई परमिशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी। इनाम मुझे मिले हैं, लेकिन बहुतों को मैं नहीं जानता। लेकिन मुझे ढूंढना है तो आप इन इंसानों में मुझे ढूंढ सकते हैं। मैं आम इंसानों का बंदा हूँ, और ढूंढने के लिए आम इंसानों में जाके मुझसे मिलो, मैं मिल जाऊंगा।
So now you don't want to cooperate. Okay, here we go. Some of the things that he stated. He said, well, what I've been given is for doing good, and that is my life. I work independently. I never ask anyone for permission. I don't remember the names of awards I've won. And so any of those three, I have questions to them. How does this quote exemplify how you show up in your life or at your job? What does this mean in regards to your work life? Why is this quote important? You can answer any of those three before we get to the fourth one. So anyone to any of those three questions.
How do you want us to answer them? Do you want us to write it down?
No, you can answer those aloud. Thank you for that clarity. We're going to write down the fourth one, though. You know where I'm going already.
If I may, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think, and I don't want to pull one out specifically. All three of them, to me, describes a relentless selflessness. Just living a life of giving, right? Realizing that life itself is a gift, and to give of yourself to others so that they can share in that gift as well. So, to me, it describes a relentless selflessness, just, living a life of giving.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Other thoughts?
I keep on thinking about he's just doing things because of the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's his motivation. He's not looking for anything beyond, I'm a good person. I want to do good. I want to help other people. And to me, that's the description of a truly glorious, beautiful person who just thinks about others and does things not for the awards or not for becoming important, but does them because of the right thing to do.
Right.
To me, I feel like he's being obedient to his purpose, and he's unapologetic about it. Like, I work independently. I never ask anyone for permission. And that tells me he serves something greater than other men. By him not remembering the names of the awards he's won, it also speaks to me that getting recognized again by other men for what he's done, that's just something that he lives, breathes, eats. That is what he's here to do. So the awards don't matter because he's living his purpose.
I would say that if I just said, who is he without the picture, and somebody came to me and just read the quotes to me, the first person I would think of would be Jesus. Because, right, it would be, because all of those things would apply. And then my second thought was, in a sense, that applies to each of us.
Come on now.
Who is he? He is all of us who strive to do something to better mankind, to better the situation in which we live. So I have two different answers.
Ms. Margaret, now you taking over the presentation now, Ms. Margaret. You like this is everybody just listen to Ms. Margaret. I'm done here. Everyone just listen to Ms. Margaret. She got it. No, that's such a beautiful answer. It's such a beautiful answer. And I think it's a good segue to, if you had to describe him, what would you say? Who is he? And I would love for us to take about 2 minutes. It's 7 or 8:08 your time. Take 2 minutes. Write down who you think he is. I was about to give some grace to those who don't want to write it, but I would love for everyone to write down who do you think he is? If you had to describe him to someone who didn't know him, who would you say he is? Take about 2 minutes to do that, and then after those 2 minutes, I'll ask for some people to write it out.
Do I have to write what I just said?
That would be beautiful, Ms. Margaret, if you did.
You know, Ms. Margaret need a pass.
Look, it was her that I was thinking about the pass for. And y'all, in that 2 minutes, I'm fine with silence. But if someone wants to play music, I'm fine with that as well. But let's dedicate. Now it's 1 minute. Let's dedicate about 1.5 minutes to writing out who he is. And when you have something, feel free to put it into the chat. We got about 1 more minute.
Rhonda, if you could read some of what people are putting in the chat, if Sundiata's okay with that. Just want to put you on standby.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yes. Okay. Rochelle mentioned, I would describe him as benevolent. I would also describe Abdul as a prophet, like Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Isaiah, all inspired teachers. Brother R. Hakim Bey mentioned he is love manifest. For me, I wrote, he's a guardian angel on earth, and he wants a good quality of life for all.
Beautiful.
There's also a couple more. Let me. Here we go. Miss Connie St. John mentioned, he is the higher self we should all strive to be. He is selfless, the epitome of my brother's keeper. Miss Spring George said, I would describe him as a man of God who lived to serve humanity. Danielle mentioned free spirit and prophet. Miss Alford mentioned, he is who we all should inspire to be. He is a pure heart in human form. Miss Nia mentioned, he is a vessel of sincerity and unconditional love. He learned how to cultivate his strengths and use them to help others. By putting aside the nature of ego and being selfless and present, being human.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And everyone, a humble servant dedicated to helping others out of love.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So thank you. Thank you so much for reading that, Rhonda.
That was one other name that was mentioned that I resonated with. That was Albert Schweitzer, who in a sense does indeed represent all of those issues that you brought out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
And so in this moment, initially I was going to have us to go to breakout room to talk about who inspires us, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately.
Sure, I can do it. I can do it. It's 8:13 though.
That's why I said for time.
Okay.
So, for time's sake, I want us to think about who inspires us. It could be history or personal, and at least two people can share aloud who inspires us, history or personal or both. Who inspires you? Tamika said Monda. Tamika, can you speak aloud and tell us why you said Monda? And the only reason I'm picking on you because you've written some beautiful things in the chat. Okay. If not, Amanda, can you speak about your inspiration? Oh, okay. Tamika.
Does Tamika want to go?
Go ahead, Amanda. She said, "Give
okay.
her a second."
Oh yeah, no. So I had my children. I was 20 when I had my first son. I have 3 now, and they just inspire me to be the best that I can be. I want the best for them. My husband and I, we got together very young, and we both grown with each other. And we both have the same vision in life for ourselves, for our family. And he's gone through a lot of hardship, and he never gives up. He keeps pushing, and he's just amazing. So he inspires me to meet him at that level. And yeah, so they're just my inspiration all day, every day. I'm with them all day, every day. We run a business together. We're there for each other. And my husband, he's not the typical just getting money, no, he does it all. He cooks, he takes care of us, he inspires us, he pushes us. He's the best dad in the world. So yeah, that's just my inspiration.
Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. He's probably the second best dad in the world, but no, I appreciate everything else. I do appreciate everything else. Tamika, did you want to speak?
Sure. I chose Monda. I had lots of inspirations. There's so many, but I chose Monda really because how she interacts with the community. She empowers so many people. She's a connector. She's a blessed person. She just has an awesome heart. So there's so many things that it's hard to sum it up in just one thing. So she knows she's great. So I think most importantly though, she is community focused and concerned about empowering, helping both men and women empower themselves. And I love the fact that she's telling stories in different facets through her work, be it through the books or be it through documentaries and videos and so forth. So my hat is off to you, Ms. Monda.
Thank you, Tamika. Appreciate that. And good segue into just a little bit of love for Monda before we get into writing who we are.
Wally wins! Yay!
All right, y'all. Second time. We really got to move now. So a little bit in terms of know thyself, and we're not going to watch the video for this. But knowing thyself, that concept, that idea, which is written in the Temple of Luxor. If you look it up, it'll say everything Greek, 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 and that's fine. The Greeks learned from the Egyptians, right? But this concept was written in the Temple of Luxor, Waset in Egypt, written in the Great Temple of Ptah in Memphis, Egypt, and it was having a deeper knowledge of who you were internally, right? And so, what I want you to do is to write 2 to 3 sentences. It doesn't have to be that many that make up who you are, and we're talking about the best of you. And so, if that instinct comes in and say, "Oh, but I don't know about it," cancel that for the moment. Who are you? And write that down. Let's take 2 minutes to do that. 2 or 3 sentences to make up who you are. Two minutes. And remembering as you're writing it, in the video that we skipped, we're not talking about your job title. We're not talking about your position in the family. But who are you deep down in your heart? Not what someone tells you that you are, but who are you deeply? Take about 1 more minute. All right. Amanda says, I'm a loving human being. I have a deep love for children, people, animals. I am someone who wants to help people and contribute to the world being a better place. Beautiful. Beautiful. Kind, Danielle, kind, loyal. Danielle's also my sister, y'all. Kind, loyal, strong, forgiving, determined, a seeker of spiritual knowledge, love. I am Day. I am clear on my power. I know what I offer. Miss Margaret, a humanist, naturalist, an optimist, a lover of learning, and an activist. Good. And now that we have these things down, Amanda, yours is, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. So this means that now that Amanda has this written down, she has the inspirations for when things get tough. And then when things get really tough, she has to always go back to this statement and says, you know what? I know that this situation is making me act a particular way, but is this who I really am? And answer that question. Is the way I'm responding to this someone who is showing that they love human beings, that they have a deep love for children, people, and animals? And then is this person that's responding right now to someone who wants to help people contribute to the world being a better place? If the answer is no, then that means we got work to do. It doesn't matter what the situation that we're in. We're like, oh, they did this, they did that. So what? Who are you? And how are you basing your response on who it is that you are? So these statements of who it is that we are, this creative light to teach others how to heal as I learn, that bold statement means that every time we don't live out that, we have posts to go back to and say, but this is who I am, and I got to remember that and move back to that. And so I would encourage all of us, have these I am statements somewhere. Don't leave them behind, because when somebody try you, you're going to forget that this is who you are. When a situation tries you, you'll forget this who you are. My professors in Syracuse were brilliant, brilliant scholars, but sometimes they weren't showing up as Miss Margaret was saying that she was showing up. And there's no knock on them. They just sometimes weren't showing up that way. And being a scholar is no excuse for not showing up as a human being. It's not at all. Abdul Sataidi told us people have become educated but have yet to become human. And so when someone tries Monda, she has to remember, well, I'm love. I'm birthed in the moon in the sky, the ocean tide, the sparkling sea, by the most high, heart open, wide, free will, free choice to be me. So she's got to remember that when she's going through a tough situation, as well as go back on her inspiration. Make sense? Thumbs up if it makes sense. Beautiful. All right. The next question. Now that you have an understanding of who you are, that you wrote yourself, no one else told you, it's like, well, how will I serve? How will I make an impact on the world based on who I am? Not based on how Harriet Tubman did it, not based on how Cecile Fatiman in Haiti did it, not based on how Malcolm did it, but based on who I am and what I have to contribute. And we're going to talk a little bit about sacrifice, which is an act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. So let's look at this video really quickly, and then we'll talk about sacrifice, and we'll write a couple of things, and then we will be close to finishing. Let me just give this. Actually, okay, no, we're gonna skip that just for sake of time, even though that was a tearjerker as well. But I want us to be thinking: what do you currently sacrifice for the well-being of yourself? For the well-being of yourself, and what will you commit to sacrifice for yourself and others in need? What do you currently sacrifice for the well-being of yourself? And there may be some of us on the call, I know it could have been me some weeks ago, that are like, I don't think I sacrificed anything for my well-being. And I had to come to the realization that I could not properly follow my I am statement if my cup was not full. I couldn't. I was giving people leftovers. And that wasn't okay for the people who I was trying to be in service to. And so I started to figure out, well, I got to sacrifice some things for the well-being of myself. And what will you commit to sacrificing for yourself and others in need? And anyone can share out loud for that. And thank y'all for bringing in these I am statements.
I just, it's interesting you started this off with, knowing who you are, right? Knowing who you are as a person, because, in order to even practice sacrifice, you have to know who you are. Meaning, you have to, when we think about knowing who you are, when you're clear on your identity, as far as who you are as an individual, that provides a purpose. And when you obey your purpose, in that you are sacrificing, because your purpose provides your charge in life, so to speak, right? So some things, when you start to learn these things, when you start to learn these things, there are things you push to the side to sacrifice for a greater cause, to sacrifice for something, that is greater than self, right? Realizing that we are all connected in the grand scheme of things. And so, part of that sacrifice is knowing your purpose and knowing who you are as an individual, right? They go hand in hand. Because when you don't know, that sacrifice is in many ways is done in vain, or it's taken for granted. Right? So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Knowing who you are provides a roadmap, so to speak, right, for you to understand your purpose. And when you understand your purpose, sacrifice itself, it comes sort of automatically because you are obedient to your purpose.
Beautiful, beautiful. Others, and let's make it practical too.
Okay, this isn't Jerry. I don't know if you guys can see me. Can you turn it
Yes,
down?
yes, I can see and hear you.
Okay, great.
Jerry, welcome.
For me, sacrifice is kind of knowing where I come from and knowing what was done before me for me to be where I am, and knowing what I have to do in order to further um, the next set of people within the family. So if I have to, give up a couple of things, just to make sure, especially with my kids, have what they need to be successful, so the next generation can keep this going. That's what sacrifice means to me. Understanding that this is a building block, that everything is not handed, especially to African American people, and you're gonna have to have people willing to keep sacrificing in order for the greater good and success to continue.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jerry. One other person. One other person.
Those are difficult questions because they ask you to dig deep within yourself to try to come up with answers that make sense in the world in which we live.
Right.
And for me, it's not so much well-being for myself, but it's the well-being of an entire community of people.
Yeah.
And what can I do to affect changes so that all of us can live a life that is allegedly part of our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And so working toward that end might be self-serving, but it's also serving others. Right. I don't know how else to answer. Those are simple questions, but they're complex.
Yeah. Yes. I think that my response to that would be, I am learning that I'm only as good. No, I'm learning that my best in terms of what I can provide to the community means I have to try to be at my best. And I saw in the comments something beautifully stated by, I believe it was Tamika. Yes. Do you want to share that, Tamika, or are you okay with me reading what you stated? Either is fine.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You can read it.
Okay. Oh, sure. In my former life, and I say my former life, I silenced my voice, and that was a sacrifice because I believed that it didn't have value, or I listened to other voices. And because of that sacrifice, I didn't always speak up when I needed to. So whether that was speaking up for myself or others. And because of that, I realize also now that what I sacrifice as far as for myself so that I am well is often things that people might consider vital. So I spend a lot of quiet time, and it's important for me to have a lot of stillness and not be hurried. And because it's not healthy for me. So that means that I walk and move and operate a little slower than I may have in the past, so that I can be conscious enough to be aware of what's going on around me and understand what's going on with me as well. So that's a sacrifice, because that means I'm not as accessible as I once was. And sometimes that can be offending to people. They're like, well, what's going on? And it's not personal. It's just that I've learned to understand that I need much more quiet space than maybe what is considered normal.
Yeah. My organization is called Ubuntu Leaders Institute. Ubuntu as a concept means I am because we are. That's the way that we translate into English. But in a more profound sense, it's a Bantu word in South Africa. In a more profound sense, it is essentially saying that when the we does well, the I does well, right? And not just that, but that the we informs the I. And now I'm not asking, when I talk about sacrificing, for rugged individualism, nor am I asking for a loss of identity for the sake of community. What I'm saying, though, is that your own personal legend, your own particular things are so important and valuable for the enhancement of the community. And they can only be given fully when you are full. And so that may mean that there's some sacrifice that you got to do for self. And then after that happens, we can't be individualistic and say, I'm sacrificing for myself, that's it. Now we have to figure out, how do we give out these gifts? Because that's what we came here for. Y'all, it's 7:30. I'm not done, But I know that some people are like, all right, 7:30, I gotta go. If that's the case, only if you have to leave, what I want you to leave with is knowing who you are and how you're gonna sacrifice. If you have to leave, I promise only about 50 more minutes. No, only about 10 or 15 more minutes. Maybe
Brother,
not even.
we've literally been going for 2 hours the last couple of times.
All
So
right, cool.
those who have to jump, we love you, and this will be on YouTube at some point. But if not, I think folks are engaged. This is a master class, and it not only speaks to the heart and it speaks to life. So I would say continue on, because and also to engage more of the audience later once you're finished, right? Because I want to hear, I want to hear what my people have to say.
Cool. All right. So, closing out, I want to listen to some words of Dr. Angelou. So we've talked about who we are and what it is that we will sacrifice. And Dr. Angelou is going to help us to think about. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Dr. Angelou is going to help us think about how will we serve, right? How are we going to serve, and in what capacity are we going to show up? So let's listen to Dr. Angelou, and then we will finish out.
Let me tell you why. Let me say this. Let me tell you why now. John Singleton was doing his movie Poetic Justice, and he asked, would I come out to Los Angeles and do a cameo? I walked out of my trailer that morning, and there was one young man cursing like you could see the blue come out of his mouth. Ooh. And then he and another fellow, they were at each other's throats. They had each other's clothes. So I went up to one young man and I said, excuse me, may I speak to you? He said, I wouldn't give. I said, I understand that. But may I speak to you for a minute? He said, if these moves, I said, I've heard that before. But do you know how important you are? Do you know that our people slept, lay spoon fashion in the filthy hatches of slave ships, in their own and in each other's excrement and urine and menstrual flow, so that you could live 200 years later? Do you know that? Do you know that our people stood on auction blocks so that you could live? He said, I said, no, but I just wonder, when's the last time anyone told you how important you are? And he started the tears started to come out. I had no Kleenex or anything, so I just wiped his face with my hands and talked to him. And Miss Janet Jackson came. She said, Dr. Angelo, I don't believe you actually talked to Tupac Shakur. So I didn't know Tupac Shakur. I didn't know Six Pack. I had never heard the name. Because in my life and my age group, you understand, I didn't know that. Tupac's mother wrote me a letter. She said her son had called her right after I had spoken to him. And she wanted to thank me. She said, you may have saved his life. And I thank you, Dr. Angelo.
In that one story, she painted a more human picture of him than the entire media did during his career, you know. People were afraid of Tupac. The media made him like he was this scary thing. And she talked about him like he was a young man in a confusing and difficult situation. And that's kind of what I like about Dr. Angelo. Because I know I'm not perfect and whatever, but it's something that she can look at me and she can kind of put the picture together. She knows I'm just a...
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened at the end, but that was really the end of the video. And so from the wisdom from Dr. Angelou, we're going to ask ourselves, how will we show others that they are important? What will we do to show others that they are important? So we are at the space of, who am I? Being firm in that, making sure we always go back to that. How will I sacrifice? How will I serve? And how will I show people and others that they are important? All right? Those three questions. Who am I? What will I sacrifice? How will I serve? And how will I show people and others that they are important in terms of this we as well? And so as we close out, but I'm going to pause for a second before we close out. If anyone has any comments in terms of the wisdom from Dr. Angelou.
I believe if all of us could take a little piece of Maya Angelou and invest it in ourselves, we would know how to treat other people and we would know how to react to other people. And the only way humans should be able to relate to one another with humanity. And that's what she did. I think the world would be a much better place today. We wouldn't be going through all of the trauma, and not just trauma, but it's more than trauma that is ripping the nation apart. And if each of us in a day-to-day, whether you're at a grocery store or wherever you are, could just reach out and let another person know how much we treasure them, simply because they are another human being. I admire Maya Angelou. I've always loved her writing.
Beautiful. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
One other idea. I taught school for a long time, and then I became a counselor. And one of the things that from the very beginning, I always knew, because it had been done to me when I was a young girl in school, that teachers treated me with respect. And it made me be even better than what I thought I could be. Yeah. So once I started teaching, that was one of the things that I brought with me to a classroom or to a counseling session, so that I doubt a few people could say that Mrs. Morrison didn't treat me with respect, because I find sometimes respect, even more than love, can carry a person on to the next level of understanding. So just respect each other and let them know that they are respected, no matter how they come on this earth, whether they're poor, rich, or in between. Doesn't make any difference whether you're Black or you're white, doesn't make any difference. If you can show respect to others, inevitably they will show respect back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right, for sake of time, I want us to end with just thinking about being pushed by pain or pulled by purpose. You know, often we sometimes are pushed by the pain of the things that have happened within history, and that's okay. But I want us to leave also feeling pulled by our purpose, right? And we talked about this march that Ms. Margaret earlier was a part of, this Women's March. And so as I saw these pictures, the rest of this picture says, protesting is patriotic. And she talked about the Women's March and how much she said love. Everyone was saying hello at this march and just what was happening there. And so sometimes I'm pushed by pain, but I want to make sure I'm all by purpose. I think about Emmett Till and the pain from that. And then I even think about the connection of Emmett Till and Tamir Rice. And if you look at the pictures of the two of them, it's almost scary how much they look similar. And I'm pushed by that pain, but I'm also pulled by this purpose. My son lost his tooth fairly recently. He was so proud of it. And I realized that he was proud of it partly because we gave him that proud space, the space to be proud about it. And so in that video where we were walking into school, he put his mask on and said, "Look, my tooth." And everyone who he comes on Zoom, he sees me, he's like, "Look, my tooth, it's gone." So he sees that as something that he accomplished, and he flicked it out himself. He had his tongue, and he runs downstairs. He's like, "Look," and his tooth was out. He's proud of that. So I'm pulled by that purpose. Right? Pushed by the pain of Emmett Till, but pulled by the purpose of making sure that I am being who I say I am, no matter what, for him to also get the example of be who you are. Not what daddy says you are, but who you are. And hopefully I can support him in that journey. I'm pushed by the pain of this, right? But I'm pulled by this purpose. It's our last video of the day. Pushed by this pain of what happened. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and the things that happened here. But I'm so inspired by watching my son and seeing him get things like this.
In the group, maybe the youngest, but very competitive and not scared, and that is Wally.
Go, big boy!
Good job, Wally.
Yeah, Wally. All right, y'all look over here.
Wally, go back, man. Go back. I'll stop that there. Wally got an award for the most improved in terms of soccer, and the coach said he was competitive and he was never afraid. And I was proud, not because of this sort of macho machismo, he wasn't afraid thing, but I was proud that he was beginning to have a life outside of mine where he was beginning to exhibit his I am and who he is. And so if you leave with nothing here, remember who you are. Remember to sacrifice for the well-being of that and sacrifice for others. And remember to serve. So I'll stop there. Monda said we need some time to hear her people. So I apologize if I didn't give them for communication. I was trying to get through it all, but I'll stop right there. And thank you all for this time.
Thank you, Sundiata. That was amazing. And if you could you put your information in the chat in case someone wants you to do that presentation somewhere else, or
yes,
okay. And when you stop sharing, so we can see.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Okay. And I'm going to open up just if anyone has any questions, observations. But I want to thank everyone who has joined tonight. My mentee Danielle Mooney, I appreciate you. Krishan, there are some people who don't show their faces but have they're the most ardent supporters and people who have your back. I mean, this is indeed a village, and each of you have touched me or my family, Sierra, Danielle, my dad, in some way. And then the Rhondas and the Ross and the Miss Margits, they have become my family, and then Jerry's. So we are all in the Connies of the world. I mean, Connie brings a village of her own. Her sister Gina's over here, and her friend Spring. So we are all intricately connected. And if we can stay connected by love, then we will just continue to trump hate and all this foolishness that's happening in the world. So Sundiata, I do really appreciate you sharing that. And maybe in another session we can talk about the remembering, right? So it's one thing to know who you are, but what about the remembering? So I just want to open it up. Does anyone want to, my sister-in-law, Nasika, thank you for being here. I love you. Yeah, so if anyone has anything that they want to say, share, just go ahead and speak up and we'll do what we do and take it until 9 o'clock.
I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was just awesome. I think in terms of time, it was just enough. It was what it was supposed to be. So just want to say thank you, and you've given us a lot to think about as we all go on and walk in our divine purpose. That's it.
Thank you. Amen.
Okay, I have, if no one else is saying anything, I did have something that I was going to share, and then something told me to hold back on it, but I'll share it but when Dr. Angelou talked about just, do you know why you're here? Do you know how important you are? Mm-hmm. It just reminded me of a time period that I don't know if anyone else would have experienced it, but the way that I experienced it. But as a child, I grew up, I'm a Christian, but I grew up watching the Muslim religion in America, the Black Muslim religion in America, knowing, of course, the Eastern Muslims and all the differences that I know of as an adult, but grew up with my siblings being Muslims in Detroit and watching that. And what I saw, because a lot of them came out of the prison system, but when they would come out, they were similar to, if anybody read the story of Malcolm X, they were in prison, they learned to stand up as men. They were respected. They were told how important they were. for whatever reason they went in, whatever was going on. But that's something that I saw I had a up close and personal view, because again, because my siblings are much older than me. Some of their children are older than me. And so I, as a child, had this up close and personal view. My brother and my brother-in-law ran a restaurant together, a Muslim restaurant called the Alhambra restaurant. So I got to just sit and watch, and what I saw, and I, as an adult, I really learned and I understood what it was literally the transformation that came about from men who had been through whatever and told that they were nothing, to stand up and be told that who they were, that they were something, that they were important, and how it transformed communities. I mean, and I saw it. I literally saw like a slum built up, you know, because people worked together. People came together and worked on building houses. The Muslims helped the Christian build churches. And I mean, it was a community, and all of it was based on pride. And it was because at some point they learned how important they were. So that's it. I'll just share that. But that's what when I saw that, it immediately flashed me back to 1972, 73, 74, and what I saw as a young person in that community.
I just realized I was on mute, and I was explaining how wonderful the evening's program was, and thanking Monda for making sure her brother was reciting. And I was talking to myself. I looked down, nobody heard me because I was muted, but thank you so much.
I thought it was odd we hadn't heard from you, Miss Mark.
Yeah, and you know, because I muted myself. I guess I thought I was talking too much. But yeah, thank you so much for the evening. It's just been fantastic.
It's been wonderful.
Anyone else?
I've just got to say that I've been trying to hold back, but that was my son, and I'm so proud of him. That's my daughter, that's Monda. I'm just so proud of all of my children, and that's something that I strive for them to be the best that they could be, and I see the best in all of them. So again, Rob, I refer to him as Rob. You see, Sundiata. I just haven't made that transition yet because he's still Rob to me. But I'm just so proud of his presentation and his growth, and just proud of all my children. So, and thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this occasion.
Thank you, Daddy. Thank you for, helping on the technical side. I need that. Punchy, Danny, anything? Meanwhile, before we close out, and share next month, we are going to be hearing from Miss Rain Pryor and her journey as a mixed race person, and how she and how she's come to terms with who she is, with a Jewish mom and a Black father. So that should be fun. Interesting, especially since we talk about healing, and a lot of times the healing and reconciliation have to do with race relations. So that should be an interesting time. Let me see. I'm going to share my desktop. No? Okay. All right, that's not working. Anyone else before we close out?
Monda, we did see the screenshot with Rain Pryor, if that's what you were talking about. We could see that.
I also think Ross was trying to talk, but we're not hearing him.
That happens every time. Come on, Ross. Come on, Ross.
Mute. Unmute.
He's unmuted. He's unmuted.
He did it. No, he did not. Did he do it? Oh, it's mute.
I mean, it may have to do because he's unmuted, but he's got on headsets and he may be connected.
Yeah.
I want to share. Well, I just want to say that I had no idea.
You introduce yourself?
And that's what I was about to do, actually. My name is Brother Rafael Hakeem Bey. So it's been an honor to be on this call. I had no idea what to expect when Brother Salaam, sent the invite, and I thought I was going to get on and be, just a viewer. I didn't know I would have to participate. But something that rung out to me was, at the onset of his presentation, he talked about how, in our advocacy work, helping people to see the strength within themselves, and helping people to change the perspective, or to change how they perceive their conditions, to realize that to be able to survive those conditions describes a strength that many people don't possess, or haven't realized that that they have. And at the end, talking about how Maya Angelou, had that conversation with Tupac. For me, I'm my profession as a licensed clinical social worker. I work with the homeless veteran population, and we assist our veterans, with getting housing and things like that. And one of the things that I often impart upon them is that it takes a lot of strength to go through this process of homelessness and to find themselves where they are at this time, right? With housing and resources and things like that. But there's a strength that even they themselves didn't realize that they had. And to be able to help them to see that is very empowering for them, but it's very rewarding for me, right? Because again, all of the things that we talked about was being selfless, showing respect, practicing the principle of love, and helping people to see that something that is within them is very great, right? And helping them to recognize the greatness within themselves. And when we all can realize that as a community, we can do wondrous things. We can build mighty things. We can accomplish mighty things as a community, as a collective of the human race, right? And so it's been an honor to be here. And I looked at behind Ms. Morrison's camera. She got 1,000 books. So when she spoke, I I didn't want to speak after her. But it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and I definitely would love to be present when you all meet again. So I'll be relying on my brother Salaam to share that invite next time. So thank you all.
Thank you. Beautifully stated.
Monda, may I make one other statement based on what I've just heard?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a song called The American Anthem. And the first few lines brought to memory. It says, for those of you who think you have nothing to share, with fear in your hearts, there is no hero there. And when you talked about the homeless, you'd be surprised at how much all of us have some hero hidden there. All we have to do is just make sure we bring it out in everybody. Yeah. So right. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll end on a laugh. This is what I've been trying to find. Rain had been touring the country talking about latkes and fried chicken. So she's got a new thing now called the Black Jewish Garden. So I was gonna play it so you all could get a sense of what she's up to and continue to define who she is and how she gives back to society.
She didn't wave. She didn't wave, and she went too fast down the street. That's what happens here. All the dogs make a fish at the same time. They do. I'm going to, oh, honey, we're going. So, hi to the people. We're to talk about our identification. And here we are in 2020, 21. Right, I forget because, the pandemic just seems like it's gone on and on forever. But I identify as a Black Jewish woman, and I feel very strongly about these things. How do you identify?
I identify as a Black Jewish queer woman.
Queer as in, oh, that's queer.
In a matter of speaking, yes. I am bisexual, meaning
that she's by herself.
I'm not only by myself, but I date men and women. And my fiance,
like two sides.
like a
Two
bicycle.
sides. I understand now.
My grandma used to call it ACDC. Grandma Ruth used to say, "Oh, she's ACDC."
Was she into that heavy metal?
No,
Because that's bad for your health.
It is. It's true. It's true. They do tests. They do
tests now for mercury.
Like Freddie, if they would have tested him, maybe it'd still be there.
Freddie Mercury. I got how you did that there.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
And as a matter of fact, my fiance is a transgender man.
True.
Real shit.
Real. Why do you have to swear? There's people out there that might not like it on their ears, the harsh words. You gotta be gentle.
Rain. Okay. Gray skies are gonna clear up.
Put on a happy face.
Wipe off the dirt and cheer up.
Put on a happy face. Spread the sunshine all over the place. And put on a happy face. That was lovely. Oh, I love when we sing together, baby. Sisters forever. Okay.
She didn't wave.
She didn't wave, and she went too fast. All right.
Can I say one other quick thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just that in the coming months, I also will be doing like spiritual workshops, and so this is just sort of surface, but like going deeper into these things and taking our time. And so I will let everyone know if anyone's interested. But I know COVID, of course, it's a pause for that, but I will be doing some sort of not workshops, but retreats in terms of spiritual development. So I'll let everyone know when that time comes. And when I say that, it is not precluded to just one particular spiritual understanding. It's anyone, any particular faith background, and that it will be for them. So I'll let everyone know.
Thank you for the clarification, brother.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for allowing me this space and time.
For sure. All righty. Well, another Healing Chronicles, another day. I've been touched, and I'm sure that you all have. So thank you so very much for coming to the Healing Chronicles, and I will see you next month.
Thank you, and good night.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Blessing.
Monda, great job.
Thank you.
Indeed.
I'm recording.
As always.